டொரண்டோ பெரும்பாகத்தில் சிறப்பலையிலும் உலகெங்கும் www.ctr24.com இணையத்திலும் ஒலிபரப்பாகின்றது. CTR கனேடிய தமிழ் வானொலி.
நேரம் காலை 9 மணி.
உள்ளூர் உலக செய்திகளின் பார்வையாய் உங்களின் தேடலாய் விடுகின்றது காற்றலையில் வணக்கம் கனடா. காலை 9 மணி முதல் திங்கள் முதல் வெள்ளி வரை சமகால செய்திகள், உள்ளூர் உலக நடப்புகள், செவ்விகள், போட்டிகள் என செய்திகளின் பார்வையாய் செவிகளின் தேடலாய் கனடிய தமிழ் வானொலியின் வணக்கம் கனடா.
ஆமாம், இந்த வேளையில் எங்களோடு நாங்கள் ஏற்கனவே சொல்லியிருந்தோம், பிராம்டன் ஸ்பிரிங்டேல் தொகுதியினுடைய கன்சர்வேட்டிவ் கட்சியினுடைய நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் திரு Parm.Gill அவர்கள் இணைந்திருக்கின்றார். குட் மார்னிங் மிஸ்டர் Gill.
Well, good morning to you and also all the listeners that are listening to your program this morning. It's great to be on your program.
Okay, it's a pleasure to have you on the show right now, and also thank you so much for joining with us, first of all, and welcome to Canadian Tamil Radio. Mr. Gill, as you know, Canadian government recently released a statement for Sri Lankan government, right? Now, could you explain it, what exactly on the statement and how they are handling this issue?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as you know, that Sri Lankan government has put approximately 16 different entities, organizations, altogether 424 individuals on supposedly a terrorist list or activities, including some that have ties to Canada. I can tell you that the Canadian government is extremely concerned with regards to the Sri Lankan government and the actions they're taking, especially to target innocent Canadians and some of these organizations. And Minister Baird, who's the minister responsible for foreign affairs, and Lynn Yelich, who is the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs and Consular Services, they both issued a joint statement to condemn the supposedly list of organizations and individuals that was issued by the Sri Lankan government, and made it perfectly clear that these actions by the Sri Lankan government have no real value on the Canadian side, and the Canadian government does not see these individuals or say, most of these organizations from the same viewpoint. But nonetheless, these this can have consequences for individuals if they were to travel back to Sri Lanka to see their loved ones and so on. Yes, they obviously, that's in the purview of the Sri Lankan government, and these individuals can face some difficulties or persecution. But with regards to Canada, the Canadian government does not support it. As this statement was issued, and we continue to fight against the Sri Lankan government in terms of the human rights violation. Going back to 2009, since the conflict, we've worked with the United Nations. As you know, we've also boycotted the Commonwealth. That was held, the meeting that was held in Sri Lanka. So the Prime Minister and Minister Baird have been extremely vocal when it comes to this issue and violation of human rights that took place in Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mr. Gill. It's well received among Tamils in Canada. Also, we would like to thank you for the Canadian government, especially Conservative Party. I believe Quintus has a question. Quintus?
Yes, Mr. Gill, this is Quintus. What you said was true, and in the recent history also, we noticed that Canada is strongly giving its voice, standing up for human rights worldwide. I mean, whether it's Libya or Tunisia or Egypt or even Syria, or in the recent days on Ukraine crisis, Canada has been raising its voice very strongly for the world peace and human rights violations. In Sri Lankan issue, what we notice worldwide is that there's a soft corner there, a soft approach for Sri Lankan regime. But Canada is really voicing it very strongly and coming out very strongly, and we see a change in the Canadian government stand. compared to the past history. Is that the new stand for the Conservative government? Is it a stand that Canada stands for? As like in many other countries, would Canada take a very stronger stand on the Sri Lankan issues as well?
Well, absolutely. As you mentioned, obviously, I can't necessarily speak for the previous governments, but I can tell you about the current government, the Conservative government that I am proud to be part of. As you mentioned, not just in Sri Lanka, but around the world, the Conservative government has taken a very strong action, very strong stand when it comes to human rights violations. And, most importantly, what I want to do is I want to thank the Tamil community, because I can tell you that the members of the Tamil community work extremely hard in terms of keeping us, not just myself, but also the other members of parliament, other cabinet ministers and so on, in terms of what is taking place in Sri Lanka. I represent the riding in Brampton, and I can tell you the Tamil community in Brampton and generally in GTA is constantly in touch with me, guys like Lethan, Xavier, Ruben, Mohan, you name it. And it's those individuals that sometimes have met with me late at night for hours and hours and making sure that we are well aware of the conditions in Sri Lanka and keep us posted. That gives us the opportunity to bring their issues and their concerns to the attention of the minister responsible. As you know, Deepak Oberoi, who was recently at the Geneva Convention, and these individuals also played a very important role in terms of communicating back and forth, as Deepak Oberoi is the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And also, I had a pleasure when Deepak was in the GTA to set up a meeting with members of the community and also help them address some of the issues directly. And also the other point I want to, thank the community for is, there's been a couple of occasions when they've showed up in Ottawa here just to thank the government, and these things go a long way. Of course, it's a two-way street. Our responsibility as members of Parliament and as government is, of course, to look after Canadians and to represent their best interests and their needs. But also, I feel that it's also the responsibility of the community, and the community has gone above and beyond to their part to make sure that the government is well informed, to make sure that the government is kept in loop. And if there are reports coming out of Sri Lanka, we've seen reports coming out from the UK and so on, and all of those are brought to our attention right away. So I really want to thank the community. I think they are doing or playing a big role in all of the government's efforts that are taking place.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. And also, we do have a final question. It's becoming increasingly challenging to our community and also difficult for the Tamil Canadians to deal with Sri Lanka and ensure the safety of the loved ones in there, right? Now, what's your message to them in Canada, especially who lives in Canada and also in international?
Well, my message to them is basically, of course, they're concerned about their loved ones, and we're equally concerned, especially members of Parliament such as myself that come from that part of the world to this country and, have spent some years growing up there. I totally understand the conditions, and believe me, there are other members that are in a similar situation. It is difficult, no doubt. It is challenging. But we need to work collectively. We need to work together to continue to force the Sri Lankan government and also our other allies around the world to make sure that we're demanding answers from the Sri Lankan government. We cannot afford to let them get away with this because this isn't just about what happened before. It isn't about what's going on today. It's also about what's going to happen in the future. These are very, very basic human rights, and I can tell you I work very closely also alongside with Minister Alexander, who is the Minister for Citizenship and Immigration, and in terms of how we can speed up some of the processes in terms of the applications that are pending there, how we can work with the families that are affected, and we will continue to do that. And I would really encourage the community to continue their engagement and continue to work with us so we can work on finding solutions. As you know, Sri Lanka government is not the most cooperative government to work with, but obviously if they're violating some of the basic human rights, then we will continue to fight against that and against the Sri Lankan government, and we'll continue to work with the Tamil community here.
Mm-hmm. And also, just to wrap up the question, Mr. Gill, as you pointed out, Sri Lankan government is not something it's cooperating with international communities or international government, right? Now, if you notice, do you see Canadian government, especially the conservative, are they handling on a soft corner Sri Lanka, or are they doing as much what they can do on these issues?
Believe me when I say this, there's absolutely no soft corner that the government has when it comes to Sri Lanka. Mm-hmm. Prime Minister has issued a number of statements. Prime Minister has spoken about the Sri Lanka issue and the human rights violation that took place in Sri Lanka in the House of Commons. Mm-hmm. Minister Baird has spoken, and we are taking an extremely strong stand when it comes to Sri Lanka. There is absolutely no soft corner for the Sri Lankan government for everything that they have done, all the human rights violations, all of the United Nations initiative to find a reconciliation, to look into some of the violations that have been conducted in Sri Lanka. They continue to oppose some of the efforts, not just the Canadian government, but other countries around the world, but also the United Nations, and we are doing everything we can that's in power, and we will continue to do that, and we will continue to work with the Tamil community. But as you pointed out before, and as I mentioned, this isn't just an issue, obviously, in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is the number one issue, but regardless where human rights violations take place mm-hmm. in the world, Canada will and the Conservative government will strongly stand up and speak against that. Mm-hmm.
That's giving me so much, giving us so much boost because that's a hope that's we're having right now at the moment. And also, especially thank you so much to you, Mr. Gill, your support to our community as we can see right now. And also thank you so much for taking time to do this interview with us. And you have a wonderful day, Mr. Gill.
It is my pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on your program. And as I always say, if any member of the community needs any assistance with the federal government issues, or whether it's something that they want to bring to my attention related to Sri Lanka or anything other, please do not hesitate to contact me, contact my office. I would be happy to assist. This is our job. This is our responsibility as members of Parliament to work with members of our community to make sure their issues are heard, make sure their issues are listened to, and I will continue to do that along with the rest of my colleagues. So once again, thank you for allowing me to come on your program and talk about this very, very important subject matter.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gill.
Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. எங்களோடு இதுவரை பிராம்டன் ஸ்பிரிங்டேல் தொகுதி நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் கன்சர்வேட்டிவ் கட்சியினுடைய நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் திரு பார்ம்.Gill அவர்கள் அணிந்திருந்தார்.